As the debate over critical race theory gains traction, a growing number of parents and educators across the country are speaking out against the controversial curriculum. The latest example comes from outraged parents in a Virginia county who launched a recall push against the school board for its stubborn support of the radical lesson plan. One mom, who actually survived the Cultural Revolution in Maoist China, compared CRT to the Cultural Revolution. Watch.
I've been very alarmed about what's going on in our school. You are now training our children to be social justice warriors and to loathe our country and our history. Growing up in Maos China, all this seemed very familiar. The communist regime used the same critical theory to divide people. The only difference is they use class instead of race. During the Cultural Revolution, I witnessed students and teachers turn against each other. We were taught to denounce our heritage. The Red Guards destroy anything that is not communist, old statues, books, and anything else. The critical race theory has its roots in cultural Marxism. It should have no place in our schools.
Joining me now to discuss the shocking similarities between CRT and the Communist Cultural Revolution in China, former Deputy National Security Advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney, Steve Yates. He's also the CEO of DC International Advisory. Steve, good to see you.
My pleasure. Good to be with you, Buck.
What should people know about the Cultural Revolution in China, first off? Because people will refer to struggle sessions on the right and the similarities to the mentality right now with cancel culture and things like that. What was the Cultural Revolution in China all about under Mao?
Well, if they're only going to get a 1-minute version, the distinguished lady who you cited gives a very good 1-minute introduction about why it matters and what happened. But essentially what the communism in China was a European philosophy, Marxism, immigrated into China. And they meant to use that philosophy as the basis to destroy all the institutions of traditional Chinese culture. They needed to do that because they didn't have legitimacy on their own. They didn't have economic performance. They didn't have the broad appeal to be able to govern. And so they had to use brute force, and they used ideological warfare as a way of defeating anyone from having the ability to question, much less politically challenge, the fledgling communist movement in China. So they attacked religion, they attacked family, they attacked any institution between the government and the individual. And these Red Guards she referred to would be the equivalent of today's Antifa or BLM protesters or rioters that want to disrupt people in their normal course of life and try to shame them for just being who they are. And so that is, I think, where the clear parallels are. But the purpose of it in China was to destroy the old and impose a new China. Literally, the word for China was Xinhua, New China. And that's what their news agency is called.
What were some of the, when you say destroy the four olds, right? I mean, what were some of the actual, that's what they used to refer to in the actual revolution. What were some of the institutions, the beliefs, the figures from history that the Cultural Revolution in China wanted to dispense with to bring about, as you said, the new China?
No, there's feudalism, there was Confucianism, notions of traditional family. These were all the things that a lot of people would stereotypically praise Chinese culture for, and most Chinese people are very proud of that. And think of just a simple example of the destruction of this notion. In China, there used to be traditionally very large families. And in Chinese language, there are different words for an uncle on a mother's side or a father's side, older than your father, younger than your father, very complicated. But with the one-child policy in place for a couple generations, not only are the institutions gone, but there's no longer Chinese people in the mainland that can say the words because there are no relevant concepts. They've completely destroyed the idea of broad-based families with aunts and uncles and cousins and all of that. That's just one example. Religion is another, and you can go down the list. But it's all top-down, the party to the person. Total control, no intermediary.
This mother in Virginia who talked about escaping the Maoist Cultural Revolution herself, she was citing cancel culture in this country, and certainly we're seeing what that means to people's careers and reputations. But in Mao's China, what did it mean to become an enemy of the regime during that Cultural Revolution? And how did they pick who were enemies?
Well, in some ways, it was just random mobs that would do this. And they would, as she alluded to, they would appeal to young people to spy on and turn in their relatives, their parents. And then the red mob would come and take their business, take their property, hang signs on them, sometimes stone them or beat them in the public square to death or to significant injury. I mean, this was very, very dangerous stuff. And so we have had some examples of this in parts of the United States. Thank heaven it hasn't been as widespread as the Cultural Revolution was in China, but it literally brought the government and the economy and the culture of China to near death. And it was really the Nixon-Kissinger outreach in 1971-72 that gave the breath of life back into the Chinese government, because we thought we had a higher strategic purpose in countering the Soviet Union. But at that time, during the Cultural Revolution, China was near bankruptcy in every way, shape, or form. And it was through engagement with the West that we brought it back to life.